And to Modern Sales Pros Mega Sco. My name is Michelle Kim. I'm your moderator today for our session, Building a Resilient Sales Strategy, Adapting to Market Changes. And apologies for my voice. Somehow I woke up this morning with a frog in my throat. But I'm really excited here to talk to our panelists today. So maybe in order of alphabetical order, you can introduce yourselves. Oh, Brian, you're on mute or your audio is not working.
Hi, everybody. My name is Brian Burkett. I'm the Chief Sales Officer at Lean Data. My background is I've returned to the company after being away for 4 years, after building it from 0 to 20 ARR. And now I'm back trying to continue to scale the business after spending time at some larger organizations like Indeed and Peloton. So excited to be here.
Awesome. I guess C for Colin. I'll go next here. Colin Spector, VP of Sales at Orem. I've been the head of sales at Orem the past 4.5, almost 5 years now, taking the company from bootstrap to Series B plus, and excited to be here. I'm a customer of each of the other panelists as well, which is unique and fun. From Zendesk, Lean Data, WorkRamp. So I've worked with all the folks in this stage here. Excited to be here.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mallory Miranda. I'm the VP of Sales at WorkRamp. We are a learning management system for both your employees and your customers and partners. So really excited to be on this panel. Great group and excited for the discussion today. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited too. And it's back to Michelle, back in alphabetical order. I did forget to mention I actually do work at Zendesk, as Colin pointed out. I'm a director of sales strategy and operations there. I've been there for over 4 years. And yeah, I'm really excited to be a part of this group because my background is in go-to-market. I've done SaaS sales, I've done marketing, program management, CS ops, and sales ops across many different companies such as Zendesk, LinkedIn, Seagate, and others. So on the topic today of building a resilient sales strategy and adapting to market changes, the first area we'll dive into is agility. So agility in action. I'd love for you all to share an instance where your organization had to change its sales strategy rapidly in response to market shifts. And I'd love to hear about the outcomes. And maybe we can start with you, Mallory, since your sales leadership focus is on fast-growing organizations.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we all saw some market shifts over the past year. The ones that we saw specifically at WorkRamp was this shift where companies want to consolidate vendors and then also freezes on purchasing from new vendors. So from a sales perspective, what we had to do there is focus more on our upsell and cross-sell motion versus relying really heavily on new business. And then also proactive prospecting on the AE side versus just having the AEs rely on the inbound traffic and the reactive upsells that they were used to getting. And so with those market shifts and those sales shifts, we kind of put together, I would say, 2 main initiatives that we put into place. One was honing and tweaking our pitch. So making sure we focused our pitch on the value of consolidation, how you can consolidate under one vendor, really nailing the why us narrative. And then we certified everyone on that new pitch within WorkRamp. And then the second strategy we put into place, maybe a little bit more fun, but I guess fun is subjective. I found it fun, but we decided to really make pipe gen a core part of our AE culture. So the way that we did this is now we have a 2-hour block every Monday where the AEs all get together on a Zoom and we spend 2 hours just generating pipeline. We have specific plays that we're working on for that week. We have an AE who leads it, who has a playlist that they play for the team to listen to while they do that. I found that to make an initiative like this successful, you really need to brand it internally. So we call ourselves breadwinners. And so we call it the Great WorkRamp Bake Off. So that's Bake Off that happens every week. At the end of each week, I send out a newsletter that reports out on results, key learnings, like how did we land one of the ops that we got last week. So I found that really if you're seeing these market shifts and you want to implement new sales strategies, the key there is brand it, make it fun, and make it consistent. Like we do not miss a week. And I think that that really helps with saying, hey, the market's shifting and we're doing something, but we're remaining consistent. We're not just putting a new initiative into place each week that can feel really whiplashy to the team.
Well, that's one way to make some dough by doing so yeah, those are great strategies that I've seen in the market as well. Doing a focus on upsell, cross-sell, and pipe gen. Pipeline cures all. So way to go and shifting your team's attention and focus areas. Colin, how about you?
Yeah, it's been an interesting, call it, I don't know, past year for us. I think for everyone, the past few years have been interesting. But for us, going from what I would call the evangelist sale, where we were really an unknown brand in a space, a new category that we were creating, this category creation, to what we now have seen as like crossing the chasm. And the sale has shifted for us. And so we've undergone this whole enablement kind of change very rapidly, where in the past, our sales motion was all around educating the customer on this category of live conversation platforms and a sales focused phone system. Whereas in the past, people had a phone system that their IT team typically purchased. With Orem, we go in through the revenue organization. And so we were really championing and evangelizing this kind of concept that you could have two phone systems. You could have your business phone system, then your sales team has a phone system. That was a new concept. And more recently, in the past year, we've started to find ourselves more in a traditional type of sales campaign, where we are starting to compete more with the more holistic business phone systems or even other sales focused phone systems. And so we've had to undergo different enablement around actual competitive landscapes where, okay, people actually have an initiative and they're sending out RFPs and an evaluation. Whereas in the past, it was more convincing and evangelizing. Now it's like, no, there's an initiative here. Let's learn how to focus in on decision criteria and champion building against a competitor's champion. So a very different sales motion for us in the past year than in the prior 4 years, which has been exciting, but it's been a rapid change that we've had to adapt to. And so we've made some key investments on enablement and training and practice. So that's been a big shift for us in the past year here. So.
Great. Yeah. So really moving away and pivoting your enablement toward the competition, right? And decision criteria. I think those are really, really key in this macroeconomic climate. Brian, I am very interested as a Lean Data customer to hear about your strategies.
Yeah. One of the things that happened to us sort of over the last few years is the makeup of our business has shifted real time. And so, when I was here originally launching the business, our commercial segment was our bread and butter. And I think emerging technology companies, like a WorkRamp, like an Orem, were where the majority of our customers were coming. And I think the headwinds that early stage venture-backed startups are facing caused almost an immediate shift in where it became a lot more difficult to land those commercial customers for us. But at the same time, our larger customers, like a Zendesk, like a Google, almost doubled down on sort of infrastructure to operate more efficiently, which I think has been a boon for us. So almost overnight, what used to be phenomenal for us became a lot more challenging, and that's the commercial segment. And so from creating pipeline to closing those deals. So one of the things we did, like Mallory, was shift the emphasis from our AEs in the commercial segment to get them back creating their own pipeline. And one of the things I had implemented from the beginning, as nobody knew who our brand was to have one-to-one SDR relationships across, every rep, even in commercial. And so what I noticed when I came back was that, that one-to-one relationship that I loved and got board support for, which was really expensive, didn't really cut it anymore. And what we noticed is that with, all the things that we struggled with, which was like rep turnover or rep promotions, we ran into these pipeline troughs on these selling teams. So one of the things we did is we broke our one-to-one relationship this year for commercial as we went to a higher ratio of reps being supported by fewer SDRs. And it's a tough sort of cultural change, but it was a business necessity that had to happen. And so when we combine that with sort of smarter account segmentation and better use of some of our technology, so far after a month of doing this, we were able to create the same amount of pipeline year over year with about a third smaller team. So.
Wow, what a great turnaround story, I guess. Thanks for sharing, all of you. I guess the next topic is, you talking about better technologies, Brian, is a topic near and dear to my heart as a RevOps leader, is just general tools and transformation. So what tools or technologies have been instrumental in helping you and your sales teams really adapt to those market changes? And I would love to hear from you first, Colin, since I know you're striving to really build a world-class sales program over there at Orem.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Orem, first of all, our team lives and breathes in Orem all the time, and something we released in the last year. And Mallory, it actually speaks to the initiative that you have with your AEs, because I totally agree. I think getting the team, doing PG together, calling together is paramount. And we also used to do our call blitzes on Zoom, but on Orem, we actually came out with our own what we call virtual sales floor, where we have kind of a video room like this, and it gets the team calling together, and the system is calibrated to automatically take people on or off mute, depending upon who's getting a connection. And so that's been transformational from kind of a coaching and learning perspective, where the other reps can really see what good looks like live on the sales floor, right? And when we were doing things on Zoom in the past, like you could really go one at a time, and it was a little more manual, and sometimes people would be talking over each other. So that was a really impactful thing we built for ourselves and have since delivered to our customers. But yeah, Orem, I'd say on the account selection side, Brian, you mentioned kind of focusing in on new accounts. We implemented a technology called Gradient Works, and Gradient Works is something that it's called Dynamic Book Builder. And so it basically created my ideal version of dynamically assigning reps more or less accounts based upon their capacity and based upon their conversion rates. And so I can create these rules, because we're an account-based territory model. We don't do geographies or verticals, but you can certainly build those rules. So we do it by account score, and we assign the accounts based upon their capacity, their quota, what they're able to close. And so Gradient Works has been game changing to help me dynamically shift each rep's personal capacity. And if I see some reps are struggling on conversion rates, they can be assigned less accounts, as an example, or more accounts if they're really killing it. So those two things have been really a game changer for us.
Colin, I will be messaging you after this about the Orem sales floor. You all might have just witnessed a sale go down right there. Awesome. I love that. From our perspective, everyone talks about Gong, but I think everyone talks about them for a good reason. We've really leveraged Gong in some of these initiatives, in terms of when I talked about how we had to recertify our team on a new pitch. So being able to see, hey, we have 4 new pitch slides, and being able to really easily track in Gong which of those 4 are the reps using the most, what are the reactions to that, being able to bring that feedback back to marketing, bring that feedback back to product, to our exec suite, and really understand what's resonating with customers. We have different segments, so different segments have different needs. So we've been really able to refine our pitch based on some of the great data that we've gotten from Gong. So just had to give them a shout out there for that.
Oh yeah, and Brian, you might be on mute, but yeah, I wanted to hear from you as well. So far we've heard about Orem, we've heard about Gradient Works, which might take me and my sales ops peers out of a job, it sounds like, and Gong, which is a staple in many companies. How about you, Brian? What have you seen as a technology that is kind of indispensable that you love?
Yeah, so one of the things that we rely on every day to sort of give us signals to go after now is user gems. So at Lean Data, we spent a lot of time sort of building up the community, whether it's through OpsStars or partners like MSP. And so we really tried to elevate the RevOps profession. So as our main customers move to different and new opportunities, getting those alerts through user gems, and then we have it integrated into Lean Data. So anytime someone makes a move, we're able to track that, send an alert, and put an SLA on that. That's all done, and get a Slack alert instantly, so we know where those folks who are familiar with have landed, and that it's time to reach out to them. So definitely sort of indispensable at this point.
I know Trinity, who's like the VP of marketing over at User Gems. She's amazing. Check out her LinkedIn posts. But yes, I did not know about the integration, and so great to hear that this is a common trend I'm hearing too across different companies, automation and integrations with Slack as well. So great to hear Lean Data's taking advantage of that best practice. So the next topic that I want to cover is a topic that I live and breathe. It's forecasting, but forecasting as it relates to forecasting for the future. So I'm curious, how do you all integrate market trend analysis and forecasting into your sales strategy, just so you can stay ahead of the curve? Brian, I'd love to hear your perspective, especially as the initial revenue leader at Lean Data. As you said, going from 0 to 20 million, not easy. I'm sure you leverage some market trends, and forecast is a big part of that as well.
Yeah, I think it's interesting the way that we think about forecasting. It's kind of evolved recently since I returned, and I think one of the things we've done is really try to zoom out and take an annual perspective. And actually, the benefits of not being a public company, we're not so focused on the month to month at this point. It's more the macro trends that lead to growth. So how are NRR rates trending? How's the new business pipeline? What are those front end indicators? We have tools that can track sort of rep deal by deal and roll-ups and forecast accuracy. But what we realized at the end of last year is that it's better to spend the time on those larger problems, and sort of zoom out from some of the micro deal management. That's probably a hot take, but for us, it's looking at sort of what's going on in the market, and then how are we adjusting to those large themes to hit sort of our annual growth expectations. And so it's been a shift to where we were really monthly, quarterly, and now we're trying to keep a broader perspective because things change, as we all know.
Yeah, definitely playing the long game, right? Shifting away from what's going on in the month, what's going on in the quarter, what's going on in the half to the year, makes a lot of sense in this climate. Colin, how about you?
Yeah, from a forecasting perspective, we do quarterly forecasts. But Brian, I love the thought and the reminder of we're also a private company, and it's not like you're needing to beat the street every quarter, right? But and I am curious, almost a jam on, maybe we can talk offline, but even the jam kind of live for everyone for just a moment. Are you still setting kind of monthly and quarterly goals for the team? And do they still have quarterly, I don't know, kind of bonus or anything like that? Or is it annual comp plans only now?
We have annual comp plans paid out monthly with quarterly targets so it's all about hitting the annual number and finding that success over the course of the year. And I think that was required board support to make that change, but they were, it was something that made sense given, our stage and scale and size.
Yeah. And I would add in, just from a sales comp perspective, there are many ways to do this, right? And so it also can depend on the role, right? SMB, velocity, that might be better suited to have a monthly target. So I think it really depends on your business and your kind of your model there. But yeah, thanks for asking that. Really great question, Colin. It's always fun to hear about these other perspectives.
100%. Yeah, I'm getting my wheels turning here as well. And yeah, to your point, Michelle, I mean, we have different segments of the business, and And that's another change that we'd made in the past year is just the way we think about segmentation, and something we switched to. We'd originally done employee size, and now we also add in a layer based upon what we call sellable seats. We're a license model. And so we look at the total account value as well as things like employee size and other signals. But and that's helped kind of our forecasting, because now we have like what we call the inside sales segment, which is much more high velocity, versus what we call growth, which is more mid-market, and our enterprise, which I'd say should fall more to an annual cadence, to what that shift Brian made. We use, from a technology perspective, we implemented Gong for our forecasting. We did that at the time when it seemed like everybody had come out with forecasting, like literally at the same time. We had Scratchpad and Outreach and Gong, and everybody else was like, "Hey, we have forecasting, by the way." Like, whoa. So it's been a great change in our operating rhythm. Every week we go through a pipeline review, and we look at weighted ARR. We look at like the Gong AI forecast, and then we look at kind of the manager roll up. And then the art of this is taking like a blend of all of them to come out with our, what we call BMW, best, middle, worst case of forecast. That's the way we think about it at Orem.
I love that. BMW. I love these acronyms. Breadwinners, BMWs. So back to our breadwinner, Mallory. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm about to say something that's probably going to horrify every person on this call, but our AEs forecast in a Google sheet each week. But as a leadership team, we zoom out, and we also use Gong, we use Atrium, and we use Salesforce for our own forecasting. But we found that getting the AEs to like actually input a number in the sheet, there's a like emotional element of accountability that we found in doing that, versus them saying like, "Hey, Gong, spit out this number. I'm going to give you that number." So we found a balance. I don't think it's perfect at the moment, but something that we've really thought about, I'll take this in a slightly different direction, but something we've thought about in terms of market shifts and how that affects our forecast, is that actually we really challenged ourselves this year of, let's not make broad assumptions about our forecast or our deals based on the chatter we're hearing in the market, because we actually ran our own data and it's the start of our fiscal year. So we just did a big analysis on last year and said, let's focus our efforts on who bought from us last year, and let's narrow our target account list based off of that, instead of saying like, here's what we're hearing from the industry, right? Of like tech isn't buying, tech had buying freezes. Actually, we sold the most in tech last year, right? So I think it's also important to remember that there is market analysis, and then there's your own market analysis. And I'm so grateful we have an incredible RevOps leader, Mikey, who helps with a lot of this, but being able to pull and say, where were our larger deals? Where were our fastest closing deals? Those are the ones that we want to focus on, again, based on different teams, but making sure we're getting both that velocity and then high deal size too.
Yeah, I mean, really, really great point. So first of all, I just want everyone to not feel embarrassed, because everyone's different. Every company and stage is different. So if your reps are still using spreadsheets, it's not the worst thing. But I think the biggest thing about forecasting is accountability, and making sure that, having them actually input their forecast is really key. So I'm glad, Mallory, you at WorkRamp, they implement that. And that's a very good point too about, making sure that you're looking at your market trends within your company and your historicals. Because I was just talking to a VC partner yesterday about how like companies don't know how to do this sometimes, like especially early stage, where you need to figure out like, how do you go to market, and where's the product market fit? And you can't always just rely on like the market or industry knowledge. You have to also look at like where are you successful? What's your ICP? Do you have lookalikes? So I'll kind of get off my soapbox from there and back to being agile and sales strategy. So I'd love to dive into how all of you stay resilient and adaptable when building and scaling a sales organization. People are at the foundation of sales after all. So I'd love to hear one tip or maybe learning that you've had as a sales leader during turbulent economic times. And that could be the pandemic or other times that you've weathered. And maybe let's start with you, Colin. And I know you're in your LinkedIn bio, it says you're very passionate about building up people and building up processes. So would love to hear from you first.
Yeah, I mean, Michelle, you nailed it, right? It's people that, make up our companies, and sales is very much a people business. And I'd say there's been a lot of kind of shiny objects and a lot of noise. And to Mallory's point, like there could be news that your market's in trouble and software is crashing, or but we remind folks and kind of ground people in. And every week we have a sales meeting, we ground people in controlling the controllables. And there's really two levers that we say at Orem, two levers you could pull in every single day. That's your attitude, that's your mental attitude, your psychology, taking care of your mindset, right? Like the way you respond to events and things. That's your attitude and your control. And then activity is the other lever. So that's the inputs that you put in every day. What type of activity? Like who are you focused on calling? How many calls are you making? Which accounts are you sourcing? Why are you sourcing? That's all under your activity bucket. So no matter what's going on around you, you can always focus in on your attitude and your activity.
Yep, you can hire for skill, but you can't really, you got to have the will, right? You can't just have the skill 100%. Brian?
Yeah, so I think, when I think about my role as a leader, definitely a people manager first. And I think as times change, or like the world changed, like it's really important to remember that, these are, we're humans, and we need to make the job, and respect that side of it, even though we all are all driving towards a number. So what's really important to me is to like build connective tissue. And I've done that at each of, wherever I've been, through setting aside dedicated time to just spend with your teammates. And for the most part, that's been virtual teams. And so, one of the things we launched at Indeed when I was there was this idea of like weekly hangs. And so it's like a half-hour Friday mornings. We jump on and we teed up one question to ask. So it's like, hey, what was your first concert? Or what was your first job? And we got to know each other a little bit, and it took time away. Like there was no business use for this other than to get to know your coworkers. At Peloton, it evolved, and we created this My Hometown. So where each week a team member would present like a slide on their hometown. So now I've heard about, dive bars in Western New York, and, crazy antics at high schools in New Jersey, or, whatever. But it was just a really good way to get to know people and try to connect, so that like maybe you're asking for help on a deal, or you're, any other reason, you had just a little bit more background on these people that you used to sit next to, that you used to talk to every day, that you don't now. And I just think it's really important to build that connective tissue so you can ask those questions, and makes it easier to develop.
I love that idea. My hometown. I might be stealing that in a team meeting coming up. But yeah, I think, Brian and Colin, you touched on a lot of great things, which is that element of people motivation. And I think that the way I think about this is, Brian, because you used to work at Peloton, I'll quote my favorite Peloton instructor, Jess Sims. You don't have to, you get to. And that has resonated so much with me. And that's kind of how I think about my hiring profile, is I have that attitude, and I want to surround myself with a team that has that attitude of, you don't have to be here, you get to be here every single day. And so it really starts with hiring and asking those questions around resiliency, and everyone asks about, tell us a deal you lost, but I think there is a ton that you can learn in how someone answers that question. Do they deflect blame? How do they reflect on what they could have done better? And so I found that finding those few questions that you can lean on in the interview process to really suss out, how does this person do in turbulent times? Are they someone who is a long-term thinker and can think about long-term goals versus just what's immediately in front of them? So that's how I think about it. But love the ideas of team bonding too. I think that's something that we could maybe do a little bit more of. It's tough in a virtual environment, so it's nice to hear about some ways that we can still do it effectively virtually.
I love the interview questions, because how someone handles adversity is what defines their character. And I think, we all strive to work with high character individuals. So it's super important we're sussing that out from the get-go.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Well, we can't have a sales strategy without salespeople. So that's why, it's so important to make sure, we're hiring and developing our people and connecting with each other on a regular basis, because after all, we're all human. So we've spent a good amount of time on a lot of really great topics. So I really appreciate all of you taking the time out of your busy days, as we all have busy days, to kind of share some of your learnings and insights as a leader. I just want to kind of, take key takeaway from each of you, one or two things. And maybe this time we'll go in reverse alphabetical order. So maybe Mallory, Colin, and Brian, if you don't mind sharing your key takeaways.
Yeah, my key takeaways are things that I learned from my wonderful peers on this call. So key takeaway is find time to have fun with your team. Make sure that you're doing that constantly. And then another key takeaway I've gotten from Brian and Colin here is, when you think about forecasting, make sure to zoom out and look at like the long term, look at the year more holistically. I think regardless of what stage you're at, making sure to do that zoom out is really important. So those would be mine.
Yeah.
You want, Brian? You got it, Brian.
All right. I just think, what my takeaway from this is just the importance of resiliency overall. And I think, for your teammates, or for the folks that are in your org, that's understanding like how resilient they are. I love the quote that Mallory shared, like, you get to be here. So like, are you hiring? Are you surrounding yourself with people that can embrace that? And then I think as a leader, it's just like, resiliency for us is like not afraid to trying new things. Not everything's going to work, but I think that, we have to lead by example, try those things and continue to look for ways to move the needle. Because I think we've all seen that the playbook has changed, the market has changed. And really, if you're not resilient, you're not going to win.
Yeah, it's so true, Brian, right? Like, you can always count on change coming, right? And your ability to cope with that change, especially like many of us have worked through early stage startups, like definition of change. It's always evolving as your company scales and your team scales. And so, yeah, definitely a reminder that it is in the interview process. You look to reduce as much risk and uncertainty about a person and how they'll cope through change, especially working at a startup, in kind of today's environment and all the macro changes we have witnessed. I loved the reminder I heard from Mallory, especially about remembering to like brand your initiatives, right? Like, I think it's easy to like put like just the actual like initiative up on the invite or the proposal, but there is something to be said about like a really cool branding around an internal initiative, whether it is a PG initiative or, something else like operation. It needs a good name. You need to have a good name for whatever that operation is. And so I like that reminder as a part of that theme of keeping it fun for your people and kind of rallying them around whatever that new change or initiative is so important. Got to have some fun here. So.
Yeah, I think, they say laughter is the best medicine, right? And I think resiliency, you need to have a sense of humor. You need to have a sense of play and, figuring out how can you engage the sales organization to drive forward on the strategies that you're building, with the board, with your executive team. It's really, really critical. So yeah, thanks everyone. Thanks Mallory and Colin and Brian for sharing all of your insights and learnings. Thank you to the audience, Modern Sales Pros, and for being here, for learning and growing and developing yourself. Thanks everyone, and enjoy the rest of the summit.
Thanks
Bye.
everyone.
Bye.
Michelle.
Thank you.
Thanks guys.